The Australian Financial Review's Joe Aston today revealed that Qantas CEO Alan Joyce has given Anthony Albanese's 23-year-old son a pass to the Qantas Chairman's Lounge. Joyce personally curates the exclusive membership list, he reports. Joe Aston says that Nathan Albanese's inclusion is the stuff tin pot African republics are made of. Now, this is a terrible look when Qantas has pushed the cost of their flights up so much. It is now basically unaffordable for anyone to fly interstate to visit family, not to mention the poor customer service. In fact, Joe Aston reveals that in the year to June 30, 2022, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission received more complaints about Qantas than any other company. More complaints than any other company. Think about that. And yet, Aston writes that Transport Minister Catherine King forced the ACCC to discontinue its airline monitoring program in June by refusing to extend its funding. Joe Aston writes that this is scandalous, and you'd have to agree. Joining me now is Terry McCrann, business writer for the Herald Sun. Terry, Qantas has also rejected Qatar and various other international airlines from having more international flights coming into Australia. The fact that Qantas flights are so costly is also reportedly an inflation issue. I mean, how can all of this be in the interests of Australians who are just trying to visit, family interstate or do business by travelling interstate or overseas? And there's, it's not quite a monopoly, but it's very difficult for Australians to find affordable flights at the moment.
Well, Sharri, the big question is how long will this continue? Because clearly Qantas flew into a perfect storm with COVID. Airlines around the world were closed down entirely. That was terrible. But those days were 2 years ago now. I mean, we made it worse in Australia by continuing our lockdowns all the way through 2021. But essentially, Qantas and all the airlines around the world have had 2 years to reap the upside with the very high fares, the great demand for international travel, for domestic travel. But enough is enough. I mean, clearly what you need now, Sharri, is more competition. And you have the government declining to impose that competition by allowing Qatar to have more slots coming into Australia. Qantas is effectively a monopoly domestically. The competition, both through its own airline and through Jetstar. And like most monopolies, it's got lazy and inefficient. It was made worse by COVID, but right now, Qantas really doesn't have a leg to stand on in arguing its case any longer. I would have given them a year of high prices and rebuilding staff coming back from COVID, but now it's totally reasonable to demand that Qantas play competitively and deliver the service to its customers that it's clearly not delivering in terms of flight times and the actual service on the planes and at the airport.
And in terms of reliability, I mean, this isn't just the Qantas issue. I know so many examples just from my immediate network. So, you can only imagine how many there would be in general of Virgin flights being cancelled at the last minute. And I'm talking 13 minutes before you're due to board the plane. And then there's just no more Virgin flights that day. People are being told to come back to the airport the next day or the day after. And so people, if they have to get somewhere to another state, they're then being forced to buy an exorbitant Qantas flight, $800 just to get from Sydney to Brisbane. So it's quite extraordinary.
Exactly.
Now, Terry, you've written a column arguing that if interest rates go up again, we shouldn't necessarily blame the Reserve Bank. You say that we should blame the team in Canberra. What do you mean by this?
Well, let me take a quick step back, Sharri. Departing Governor Philip Lowe and incoming Governor Michelle Bullock are on a unity ticket about the immediate future for interest rates. They held rates steady, as we know, this meeting, and they've essentially announced they'll do the same thing in September and October as well. That's Lowe's last meeting and Bullock's first meeting. So the big question about the short-term future with interest rates is the November meeting on Cup Day, which comes after the next lot of inflation data. Excuse me. If data is good, we won't get a rate rise. What I was talking about in terms of future rate rises, what might happen in 2024? Because the real worry is that we get into 2024, either we will have to put up rates again or we will have to keep them as high as they are, but not because of anything that the Reserve Bank has been doing, but because of the environment that the government is creating with its anti-business, anti-productivity agenda, which is not promoting profitable wage increases, which will allow businesses to give those wage increases without having to force up prices again. We want to see higher wages. We don't want to see higher inflation. And if we get higher wages and higher inflation in 2024, the Reserve Bank will put up interest rates, but it will be doing its job, and the blame should go strictly and totally to the guys in Canberra.
All right, yeah, and businesses really are complaining about Tony Burke's IR laws there that you're referring to. Terry McCrann, you are always essential reading in the Herald Sun. I really appreciate your time this evening.